Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, dear colleagues. We are just settling down and we will be starting in 1 minute. Thank you for your participation. So once again, a warm welcome to all the participants of this webinar. This is the fifth monthly webinar of a local government and municipal authorities constituency towards climate conference by the end of the year, COP27 in short form, to be hosted in Sharm el-Sheikh in Egypt in November. My name is Yunus Arikan. I'm the Director of Global Advocacy at ICLE, Local Governments for Sustainability. And I'm also acting as the focal point of local government and municipal authorities constituency. Today, we will have around an hour of a webinar. Those who remember, we have been also sharing the slot with our colleagues in the biodiversity space. My colleague Stefania is with me, but we are aware the agenda in this biodiversity agenda is not that much, let's say, made any major progress since the last webinar we had a month before. So it may be possible that we may not focus too much or may not spend too much time on it. But Stefania is ready to maybe a brief update on the latest status we are. In the afternoon, I will also be joined by my colleague Kale Roberts from the US. Webinar that is taking identically in the morning at the 10 a.m. the Central European time, but also repeated for the Western Hemisphere colleagues at 4. Join us as well. As a regular practice, this webinar is recorded, and the participants are also able to type the chat box or in the Q&A box for their interventions. During the webinar, according to the agenda, we may have guests joining us to share their updates from various members who have been engaged in the agenda. So we didn't list them all because we are just checking with their availability. Some of them may also join us in the second webinar in the afternoon, but I would like to thank all of them as well. So as usual, we will go through the basics of our engagement in the UN climate process in terms of who is who and how are we engaged. We will review what has been achieved over the last 4 weeks. And we will spend most of our time about the upcoming the technical sessions in Bonn in June, including the discussions or preparation for global stocktake and the negotiation agenda items, including the submissions as well. So with this, let me continue in the agenda as those who are familiar in the process, this slide may not be too much new for you, but just in case, for those who have joined us for the first time, we are a constituency. We are gathered around more than 30 networks that are officially accredited to UNFCCC, but our communication channels are beyond those who are accredited to UNFCCC because it's a bit bureaucratical process. It takes time, but we are reaching out to all members or networks of local energy governments who are interested in the climate space. We particularly participate into the negotiations process through the regular year-round engagement, including at the end of the year, multi-level action, supporting other processes like Marrakesh Partnership as well. Over these years, we have made a major I am hearing that my connection may not be stable, so maybe it's better that I turn off my camera. That's what I'm recommended. Just a second. Thanks, Patricia, for the reminder. This would be better. And just to be on the safe side, I also will connect my headset. This would but so you can just flag me and note if it is okay. For those again, we have been in the process and I think our efforts particularly advanced on the way to Copenhagen because we were not in the UNFCCC and Kyoto Protocol. We have particularly managed to get our recognition in the Paris Agreement based on our engagement since Copenhagen as well. And since Paris Agreement, we are advancing in the concept of multi-level action because it's one of the provisions of the Paris Agreement, which is particularly strengthened with the Glasgow Climate Pact, including a paragraph which says that the parties are highlighting the urgent need for multi-level and that sense, this is the first time the phrase multi-level now is in the agenda of the UNFCCC process. So that is our major achievement. We have our website that is trying to be tracking all our achievements, especially our engagement in the COPs. The video, including others, are also available in our YouTube channels so that we can watch, including the webinar recordings as well. The registration links takes you to the registration for all the year-round sessions. For those who are interested, later on they can join us. Just before going to COP27, let's remind ourselves we have 4 main, let's say, categories of our achievements in the Glasgow, where we say that time for multi-level action has come. This was our motto. Time for multi-level action was our motto or hashtag towards COP26, and we can definitely say that Glasgow proved that this time has come. And how we define this, we have Glasgow Climate Pact references to multi-level action, but also numerous references to local energy government in the route to text. The reference to constituencies are acknowledged. There is also a strong reference to engage youth in the local decision making, and we have been practicing with some pioneering members on the climate emergency declarations. And we're also excited because there is a call for new NDCs. And in that call, we are basically expecting that those announcements, be it Race to Zero or Race to Resilience or anything that was announced in Glasgow, should be incorporated into NDCs as a minimum, because without them being recognized in the NDCs, it makes no sense, or we cannot make sure that is supporting the global or national efforts. And of course, we're also happy that Marrakesh Partnership is now approved with the new improved agenda. There are 2 thematic process. There was Article 6.8, which refers to non-market approaches, and that is becoming a new topic, especially how to position integrated sustainable urban development as a non-market approach. It's an urban planning process, which is not only the local government, but in many countries, especially in the global south, in the hands of the national governments. How this could be a non-market approach, I think that is something that will really be occupying a lot of time. We are also very excited with our Action for Climate Empowerment, which is access to information, participation, public awareness, education, capacity training. There are numerous references to local governments. And in Glasgow, we were proud of our
multi-level action pavilion, announcements on the race to zero. We have been engaged in the negotiations, other announcements like Glasgow Food Declaration or Biodiversity Edinburgh process, and numerous announcements, including subnational agreements between US, Japan, and China, but as well as leadership from subnational governments like Scotland and Bologna for voluntary commitment for the loss and damage, and including some of the finance initiatives as well. Let's remember those process were particularly delivered through our home at the Blue Zone, which was the multi-level action pavilion, and we are sincerely committed to replicate its success in Sharm el Sheikh, and especially in the next couple of weeks we will come back to you all so that this partnership can also extend. One of the reasons is that we believe there is a need for an even bigger space for multi-level action pavilion. Therefore, we look forward to working with you on that on that front. And building on these outcomes, we have defined over the past couple of months collectively as LGMA that we will be having four main, let's say, priorities, which is also formulated under the new hashtag of multi-level action delivers. So time for multi-level action has come, or the multi-level action is now on the table, but now we have to show that it delivers, especially that the Paris Agreement is fully now defined, and especially it is referred to be multi-level. So the first priority is that we have to have recognition of our commitments to NDCs and the multi-level NDCs to be come up much clearly. We have seen around 60 countries developing their NDCs towards COP, but it has to be much more robust. Where there is an unfinished business on climate emergency, we will focus on food, nature, culture, lifestyles, and circular economy, migration, loss, and damage, and most importantly, our biggest progress, and we will touch upon it, the climate and urbanization ministerial is coming up. And of course, this is an Africa COP as well as a Mediterranean and Middle East and North Africa region. So we will also be encouraging empowerment of our members there. This is an updated slide about who is who. As you can see, the circle of the UK presidency is a bit getting shrinked, which is normal because now they are gradually handing over to the Egyptian presidency, who will take over starting from COP, but they are already preparing. They are been advancing with their teams. We are seeing that the UK team is also being adjusted, but particularly both Nigel Topping as the champion and Alok Sharma are very actively involved in the process. There were some advisory bodies, but we don't know how much they are active. And now we are looking forward to more active engagement of the president designate, high-level climate champion, and also ministerial coordinator from Egyptian government. The most important new text in this slide you can see is on the right side. The COP27 presidency announced their 5 priorities. You remember, every COP presidency have their own priorities, which was particularly the case for UK and others. These priorities for Egypt is also speaking very much to the heart and minds of the LGMA constituency: holistic approach, implementation, finance, regionalization, and finally the localization. The term localization in that context defines a bit more local communities, be it urban, be it rural, a bit more reaching out to the layman or laywoman, as you can call it, or ordinary citizens. But the term localization has been particularly a very powerful statement to acknowledge the role of local and regional government since Local Agenda 21, and especially in the localization of the SDGs. Therefore, we believe in the full conceptualization of this localization. There will be a strong role for local and regional governments, and we are hearing more and more evidence of this. So that is very powerful for us. You may remember in the UK presidency, there was a term collaboration that was also referring to multi-stakeholder partnerships. Now, having localization in the priority is giving us much more opportunities. I think that is one of the biggest announcements we can think about on the way towards COP27. And obviously, if localization is a priority, then the multi-level action pavilion should be even bigger in the Blue Zone. That also justifies our work. Let's continue. We said last month that there's a game changer, that the UN Habitat Executive Board mandated the UN Habitat Executive Director to approach to the COP27 presidency to convene a cities and climate change, or a conference on how focusing on housing and urban development along the margins of climate change. In practice, this was the first ever climate and urbanization ministerial at COP27. This has been something that LGMA has been asking since 2019 in Madrid. Therefore, we are extremely happy that that is now becoming a core priority for UN Habitat, the UN agency focusing on urbanization and sustainable urban development. And over these couple of days, there had been some additional progress. First of all, it's not a coincidence that, or it's not a chance only, but it's a deliberate plan, because Egypt was the host of the World Cities Day in 2021. The day we were in Glasgow, we kicked off our multi-level action pavilion and our strategy, time for multi-level action has come. The UN Habitat and the Egyptian government was in Luxor, one of the ancient cities of Egypt, to celebrate World Cities Day. And a couple of months later, the government of Egypt and the UN Habitat also announced that the World Urban Forum will be hosted in Egypt in 2024. So it makes a perfect sense to have a discussion on urbanization climate at COP27, which is hosted in Egypt. There are other elements that we are very, very advantageous. We have an urban planner sitting at the Prime Minister's office. That, of course, is a huge opportunity, because it's someone that knows our scope, our business. And of course, connecting urbanization to climate is the task of the machinery of the presidency. We are aware the Egyptian government does also have supported a number of Egyptian cities to develop their voluntary local review. So it's a unique model. It's their own model of multi-level action. And especially this year is unique because we are seeing, we will touch upon it, the G7 Urbanization Ministerial will take place in September. There's already strong development in the G7 perspective. This complements what is going on in the G20. So concluding the year at a climate and urbanization minister is a fantastic, a natural conclusion. It will, let's say, culminate all our efforts of this year. And of course, it will be a process, hopefully, between ministers and ministers of urbanization, minister of climate. But obviously, we're expecting there will be a strong engagement of our constituency, and there will be a number of processes around this ministerial event, and very likely the outcomes will also have long-term impact. So just the latest updates, of course, now having the priority of one of the 5 priorities, localization, is something new that is supporting us. This statement that climate and urbanization was first announced by the LGMA constituency, president of ICLE and mayor of Des Moines, at the UN General Assembly meetings in April. That was warmly welcomed by our constituency, and the theme or the topic was officially announced by the executive director of UN Habitat during the Afro-Cities meeting, which took place last week. So now we are gradually improving, and we are aware there are important discussions between the presidency and the UN Habitat officials. So it's all good. This gives us a huge reason to be very ambitious about COP27. We touched upon this couple of things. Let's remember, since our webinar on the 20th of April, we had the high-level review, and that was the moment where we started to promote the climate and urbanization ministerial. We have an Urban 7 Mayor Summit. I'm sorry for the disturbance. I'm not sure whether the voice is coming from my dog here at home. We will touch upon the U7 Urban 7 Mayor Summit in a short time, in a while in the next slides. We have seen the COP26 and COP27 presidency have convened a May ministerial. This was important because it's one of the earliest engagement of ministers in the UN space. Usually they come to the process towards the end of the year, just before the COP. So having the ministers coming into this discussion, which was around more than 40, it was good signal that they're aiming to raise the ambition, especially in the process of implementation era. And in that sense, one of the interesting things, this was happening in Copenhagen. The government of Denmark hosted this, and or those who remember, Copenhagen has a slightly sour taste in the mouth of many COP participants. Many people refer to the famous 2009 Copenhagen summit, which failed to advance. So with this new spirit coming up from Copenhagen, we have been actually managing to make sure that a new spirit is coming up. And we have seen this in the meeting design, logistics. It was perfect, and we congratulate Egypt, UK, and Copenhagen. The local government's constituency was represented by just a second. I'm disturbed by my agenda at home. Sorry, I'm back. This is sorry for this technical disturbance. So coming back into the main ministerial, LGMA, along with 6 other constituencies out of 9, so there were 7 of them there. LGMA was present. Our colleague from C40 have managed to secure our presence at the meeting. So she also has, as Judith Nazan has delivered an intervention, especially in the session on loss and damage. So that was good. That shows our strength into the process. We will hear throughout the day in this session probably an intervention from our colleagues from Committee of the Regions who are preparing their COP27 position. Africities, as we said, it was the largest mobilization of the African continent of local and regional governments and their partners. And this was also witnessed. There was a climate day, as well as part of the climate day, there was this first official announcement of this climate and urbanization ministerial. We had hosted in Malmö the World Congress, including announcement of the Global Climate and Action Agenda on Research and Cities, which is a result of Innovate for Cities process. There was a desertification COP in Abidjan that we have noted, that I will touch upon it later on, and we will touch on the G7 processes also in this meeting. I see Teresa from Committee of the Regions. Teresa, would you like to share any impressions from your consultations as Committee of the Regions about the preparatory process for COP27 position of the European cities and regions? We could give you the floor, and you can even turn on your camera if you want.
Yes, I'm going to turn on my camera if I manage to do that.
Patricia, if you can help us to have Teresa with her video. Yes, it's coming. Perfect, Teresa. Yes, we see you very well. And yeah, we will go through the agendas, but since you're here, let's hear how are the preparations from European side on the COP27 position.
Yes, I can, thanks Yunus. I can give you an overview of the work that we are doing at the European Committee of the Regions. We are currently working on 2 legislative opinions, which will include our political messages to the EU institutions, and that would hopefully influence the EU mandate for COP27. The first one is being prepared by the ENVI Commission, where I work. This was requested by the European Commission, and it will include the messages that we have already raised in past opinions, including the messages that we that are including in the political declaration that LGMA released in November last year, and new messages on the implementation of the Glasgow Climate Pact. The rapporteur for this opinion is Alison Gilliland, who's the mayor of Dublin. We are also working on a second opinion, which will be complementary to the ENVE opinion on the topic of subnational climate diplomacy. We will have our exchange of views next Tuesday, the 31st of May. Yunus will join for a statement on behalf of LGMA, and I will paste the link, the connection link, so you can join if you are available. The adoption of the opinions is foreseen for October. We had a very good stakeholder consultation on the 10th of May with representatives from the UNFCCC, the European Commission, and the Parliament. And I know that many of the networks that joined are connected here as well. And we will be happy to receive written contributions by the 10th of June. I will copy paste our email address so you can reach out to us. We are already engaging with the Czech permanent representation to the EU, since they will take over the presidency of the Council of the EU in July, and they will be the ones in charge of the negotiations on the EU mandate. And we are working on 2 submissions on the global goal of adaptation. I know that the colleagues from Regions 4 are connected here. My understanding is that they sent their contributions, our contribution, a couple of weeks ago, but we are waiting for information on next steps and how to send this to the UNFCCC. And we are also working on the submission on gender and climate change with the UCLG. We sent our contribution to them yesterday, and we are waiting for them to get back to us, and we will send it to you in the next couple of days. I would like to also raise the point that we have appointed our delegation to COP to the COP. It will be composed of 8 members. So the future COR President Vasco Cordeiro, Rafał Trzaskowski, the Mayor of Warsaw, and also our Rapporteur Alison Gilliland, the Mayor of Dublin. We are already engaging with the European Commission. We will meet with them at the end of June, and then we will meet with the delegation of the European Parliament in September when this one is appointed. I think that is everything that I wanted to say. We are trying to start engaging very early this year because what our objective is to really influence the EU mandate and to see some of the points that we have already raised, and we will keep raising. We want to see it in the Council conclusions. So of course, if you have anything that you want to raise and that we could add to the opinions, please reach out to us at the email address that I will send in the chat. And we will also be present in Bonn in a couple of weeks.
Excellent.
So if you are there, I will meet you.
Yes. We will come to that point as well, but thanks for this coverage and congratulations for your efforts. I think especially this 2-track approach about a technical position paper on the negotiations, but also subnational or urban diplomacy is very, very important, because you may recall we are in the process of the UN Secretary General preparing to announce a new body of advisory group for local and regional governments, which is a result of his work under the UN 75, or the improvement of the UN system. And Committee of the Regions as a constitutional body of the European Union is a unique experience, and that's why we are really excited to make sure such an experience can be globalized, of course, on the conditions, or these are, let's say, some steps that we could make use of. And also the discussions about this climate and urbanization could take us to something new in the climate space. Therefore, your engagement, in addition to the networks as a unique European constitutional body, is important. And I'm very happy to hear the Mayor of Warsaw in your delegation, because the COP29 in 2025 will be in Eastern Europe. So it's good that at least Eastern European local and regional leaders are also aware of the discussions so that they can start preparing, because at the moment we don't know which country will host, but Poland hosted twice Eastern Europe COPs in the past, in Poznan and in Warsaw. It could be possible that Warsaw could be again another host. So it's good to have Mayor of Warsaw there. And final, of course, next week we will have more discussions, and it's good to see the momentum, especially we are also aware in Europe, you have the Commission announced this 100 climate neutral cities. So that is a big momentum going on. Great. And any questions from the participants, we can also respond, but let's continue. As far as I know, we don't have anyone from Africa at the moment, but therefore I would suggest that I proceed with especially the Urban 7 process. The Urban 7 is something that is evolving since 2021, but it was a effort since 2016. For the moment, it is the networks of local governments in the G7 countries plus the European Union. So as such, that has been like a continuity of those efforts, but with the German G7 presidency, which already had a strong reference to cities and sustainable urbanization and multi-level governance in the presidency program, there was even more excitement. So the coalition or the group of the networks and supported with an alliance, including German Association of Cities, Global Parliament of Mayors, and ICLE, in collaboration with the Federal Ministry of Development Cooperation and Engagement Global as a supporting institution as well. We have had our Mayor's Summit. It was virtual, but it was kept gathering all the networks of the G7 countries. Plus, we had Global South representatives, as well as UCLG is also a global partner in this process, which showed the diversity and the strength of the Urban 7. And it was also important to note that that was at the beginning of the ministerial cycle. We will touch upon it, that before other stakeholders convene their own summits or other ministers convened, the cities and networks of local governments have announced or made their position very clearly. A very good signal from the engagement or recognition is that two of the state secretaries of German government, the state secretary from BMZ, Minister of Development Cooperation, and Minister of Housing, which will host the Sustainable Urbanization Ministerial in September. They were both at the summit, listening to our inputs and providing feedbacks to our comments. I think that was very, very motivating. The declaration is 6-page long. I'm not copying here all of it, but it contained a preamble with especially a reference to also democracy and peace in the times of war in Europe being experienced under the Russian invasion of Ukraine. And it also referred a couple of points to the existing presidency program, and it concluded with our 10 points of our expectations from the G7 countries, which was a message to all now the ministerial sessions that is coming up. And actually some of them has already taken place, and we will see how the impacts have been felt, let's say. First of all, we ask for an official engagement. At the moment in the G7 presidency website, Urban 7 doesn't exist because the Urban 7 was not recognized so much in the previous presidency. But German government and presidency is very, very keen on it. So we are very confident that by the end of COP22, by the end of 2022, Urban 7 will be as visible as other 7 engagement groups. We are committed to follow all the ministerials. That is again the difference. In the past, we had our summit, a mayor summit, and it was done. There was no opportunity for the Urban 7 to engage in the ministerial sessions of G7. Now, both there is an appetite or an openness from the presidency, but also the networks are very keen to follow up the process. And that is also giving us the signal that we are advancing our engagement in the G7 process. Then we would like to see the urban diplomacy as our concrete ask for the G7 to be in their foreign policy and development policies, to embrace local self-governance inside the G7 and externally is something that we want them to embrace. It's not just climate, it's not just biodiversity. Local self-government is a notion that we want every nation, in particular G7 countries, of course, to embrace. We have are concrete specific asks on various global agendas, and one of them is the NDCs. As of today, it's only UK who has a Paris compatible NDC, unfortunately. So with this call, we're asking all the G7 countries to be presenting their NDCs that is sufficient or compatible for Paris Agreement. Let's remember, G7 countries collectively are not on the Paris Agreement track. So we have to ask them to raise their ambition, and this has to be in collaboration with local energy governments in all the G7 countries. There are other paragraphs, but I'm not going to because it's out of the climate space at this moment. We have another strong 2 paragraphs, one on debt relief and supporting of equal access to vaccines and increase finances to sustainability efforts. And on particular on financing, we are asking both to increase national budgets going to the national sustainable urbanization in the G7 countries, but also increase of the ODA and climate funds with a particular percentage of increase, or let's say significant increase of the share of sustainable urbanization in the climate funds and in the official development assistance programs. Obviously, these G7 countries are the biggest donors or the biggest contributors of the global funds. So the cities of those countries, the mayors of those countries are asking their ministers and heads of states to increase share of sustainable urbanization in the global development and the cooperation. That I think is a strong signal which we will follow up on the years and weeks ahead. We announced our solidarity with Urban 20 as a signal of the synergy between G7 and G20. It's just the time that we need most, which is the solidarity and multilateralism. And we also expressed our strong solidarity with Ukraine, especially to not just support them in this dire moments of war, but also and express our readiness to support them as being the bridge to a sustainable urbanization, because the cities in Ukraine are vashed now with the detrimental impacts of war. So it's obvious that the urban communities there would definitely need support, and G7 networks are ready to be helping them in addition to their support during the war times, be it migration, but also in other solidarity efforts. And finally, we will follow up with the heads of state as well. So this was Urban 7. So let's see how it is now impacting. As we said, the month of May and June is particularly heavy in the G7 agenda. And the first 2 most relevant ministerials for us was concluded with a very strong reference to cities, sustainable urbanization, and multi-level action. This is extremely welcoming because such references has never been included in any of the G7 communique in the past. So we are making really an impact into the whole process. In the foreign affairs, there is a reference to engage some national governments as well. That's good. That is responding to our multi-level action and urban diplomacy. In the development ministerial, the paragraph that refers to NDCs highlight the important role of cities and local governments in the just climate transition. That is fantastic because it's exactly where we want to position the commitments of the cities. Race to Zero or any others should now reach to NDCs. On the sustainable infrastructure, obviously we are strong. There will be some more efforts coming up. We know the development ministerial process will continue in months ahead, and also the other paragraph on 53 is also very valuable for us in terms of multi-level action. Today, the ministers of climate and environment are starting to have their meetings in Berlin. The communique will be released very likely on Friday, and we're also expecting a very strong statement on cities and subnational. This is particularly very good because on the way to COP27, urban climate and urbanization, that will be a very positive input. And we are also hearing from the insiders that the heads of state announcement that is expected in Schloss Elmau at the end of June may also have a powerful reference to cities and multi-level action. Let's not forget the 2 of the G7 leaders at the moment are former mayors. mayor of London, former mayor of London, and former mayor of Hamburg are their heads of state of their countries, UK and Germany. We have heard Japan Prime Minister addressing the Zero Carbon City Forum. We heard from France as well in the past, and the legacy of the Paris Agreement, the US as also the custodian of some multi-level action. We are very hopeful that if we can reach to that level, this will be a fantastic input to our efforts and elevate our work. This year, we also had a COP a couple of weeks ago. It was the Abidjan, Cote d'Ivoire, the desertification COP. Unfortunately, the whole event was a bit missed opportunity for our constituency because literally there were two big meetings, ICLE World Congress and AfroCities, taking place in exactly the same dates. Obviously, this distracted our attention. We know climate change had a one-side event with city of Abidjan, but we are aware that there was not too much engagement in the official agenda, which is at the moment it is what it is. We were very strong in COP14 in Hyderabad. We will hope to be more actively involved in the future activities, especially in connection to biodiversity. But we also have seen the Global Land Outlook, one of the flagship reports of the UN Desertification Secretariat, refers very prominently to urban and rural continuum or urban and rural synergies, be it in the land, be it biodiversity, also food and migration. So there is a very strong connection. So that's still positive. There were two documents. Heads of state doesn't make any reference to multi-level or cities, but the COP15, the one that is adopted by ministers, has some reference to local and regional governments, which is very, very promising. So with this, I will focus a bit now our time for there was a point from Eva Banos. I'll get back to this. Eurocities is the Eurocities network. It's not the commission. The Eurocities as a network of European cities and local governments. Eva, that was a response to your question in the chat box. Thanks for your clarification. So next agenda is the regular technical meetings of UNFCCC taking place. I will go through it shortly, and I will give the floor to Stefania, and maybe we can come back to this discussion on the details of it. First of all, this is happening 3 years later since the pandemic that was canceled. It will be hybrid, which means official accreditations will continue. It will be in person, but there will be some events for virtual participation. But even for those, you have to register through your accredited network. So check your lists. The partners who are involved in this webinar and the rest, we will once again remind that inform us about your delegations who are coming to Bonn. ICLE has a privilege, luckily, that we are based in the same city, so we have a bit more flexibility. And those who are in need of registration, we can also check within the quota that ICLE has received. So that will be first point. Second, there will be numerous negotiation agendas, but we have particularly selected some sessions. There will be workshops, and some of them we also received as advocacy correspondence of the UN process, that participation of the LGMA is also possible. So the dialogues on ACE, loss and damage, adaptation, and non-market mechanisms. I will circulate this because deadlines are in the next couple of days. So it will be good to nominate expertise from our network, and that corresponds to our thematic working groups under the LGMA. The most important agenda is the global stocktake. That is now designed towards 2023, and this will be the first technical dialogue. It will spread around this 2 weeks. It is kicked off on the 9th of June with an opening, and the 14th is a closing. There will be full day of sessions on the 10th and half a day on the 11th and then 13th. So obviously it is a challenge, because if you are registered for this event, you have to spend 5 days, including Sunday, which is off. So because it is spread, I am expecting that the participation may be a bit challenging. The mechanism that the co-chairs and facilitators have proposed is very, very positive. There will be 45 seats for non-party stakeholders. Out of this, 3 is reserved for local and regional governments representation through LGMA. And building on our previous thematic working groups, we have nominated to each of those mitigation, adaptation, and finance representatives from ICLE, Committee of the Regions, and FMDV. We are still checking with the UNFCCC whether they could be flexible for substitute, because some of our colleagues may be not able to attend fully. So we will check with this opportunity as well. But more importantly, there will be several technical dialogues, minimum in August 2022 and March 2023. We don't know yet where will this happen, and we don't know the format. And for sure we will nominate other representatives, and we will look forward to diversifying. And we're expecting this technical dialogues will be probably in the global south, so that it could also give us more opportunities for different voices of our local governments and others as well. There will be no exhibits, but there will be side events. In that regard, we have seen, according to the calendar of side events list, the only LGMA partner who's having a side event is ICLE. This will be already focusing on our COP27 strategy. So we will get back to you so that you can join us in the side event. It is tentatively scheduled on 13th of Monday, but we're checking, maybe there may be a change in the time or date because it overlaps with the global stock take. So we don't want this overlap. During this process, on the 10th of June, the first week Friday, City Hall of Bonn will host a special multi-level action dialogue. That is our regular discussion with the negotiators. It will be by invitation only because of the COVID and then the limited logistical space. We would particularly aim to connect to our friends of multi-level action, but we will see those who are from the LGMA who will be in Bonn. We will be more than happy to have you joining us. There will be opening and closing interventions, and there will be numerous dialogues with UNFCCC, COP26, COP27 presidency. There will be daily briefings. We don't know how many of you will be there, so that's why it's important that you keep us informed. Meanwhile, high-level champions will also have a session as well. Further details, I just repeated it, but there is a big website of the global stock take, and there was the preparatory meeting this last Wednesday where I joined, and I highlighted our traditional positions that global stock take should be similar to Talanoa dialogues. It should be year-round, and it should be taking place even in the cities. This was the strength of the Talanoa dialogues. This should be based on and this is the latest one submitted this year, and it should also be an opportunity to bring non-party stakeholders commitments and multi-level collaboration. These are the 3 main points that we would wish to see. But in this 3 days discussions, you have seen the champions have made so many questions, so we will be relating ourselves to these questions as well. That brings me to the last slide. One thing, as been working over the past weeks, as mentioned by Committee of the Regions and others, we have created specific thematic groups. Some of them have already started their documents. We were hoping that this could be submitted by the deadline. We missed those deadlines. But more importantly, when I look at the documents that is being prepared, there is one major probably misunderstanding that was, I don't know how it happened, but all these position papers or submissions are based into the perspective that they will be feeding to the stock take. However, those positions, those submissions are independent from the stock take. So there is really a need for adjustment of these papers. And I will get back to, first of all, to the owners of those, let's say, leaders of these processes, but it will be good to discuss it. And under this condition, honestly speaking, it may be better that we do not submit this before SPS because we are already late. It may be better that we come back to each other once again and make sure what is the purpose of these documents, because it would be nice to make it relevant and not just a document that is not read finally later on. So that is my concluding remarks. I know Stefania is with us. and maybe let's give the floor to Stefania. And in the meantime, our colleagues who are in the call who would like to contribute into the other agendas, we can also take your inputs. So
Yes.
Stefania, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Thanks, everybody. It's a pleasure to be participating in this so contentful, full of content meeting webinar. As far as the biodiversity agenda is concerned, as you were saying before, there is not that much of updates. In fact, the meetings that we regularly have with our colleagues in China have been cancelled over the last 2 weeks because of the no updates that haven't been, kind of advanced. The good news is that last 19th of May, there has been a meeting in order to be deciding reconsidering the dates, because apparently, I'm talking about Kunming CBD COP 15, because apparently, because of COVID, the dates might be postponed again. And so it has not been confirmed yet. We haven't received any notification for that. So the next step, which is just relevant, is the Nairobi meeting following the Geneva sub-star meetings that have been taking place last March. And that will be in Kenya, in Nairobi, from the 21st to the 26th of June, the 4th meeting of the open-ended working group on the post-2020 global biodiversity framework. Ingrid from our side will be there because, as you know, some of the issues have not been sorted during the Geneva meeting. So it's just to be completing those specific issues, taking to Kunming. What might be relevant for you is to know that the São Paulo state, together with ICLEI and Region 4, supported by GIZ, is organizing an important summit in São Paulo, 7, 8, and 9 of June, which is called the World Bio 2022. It's going to be an hybrid event, and that's part of the experience of the Edinburgh process, supports the implementation of the post-2020 global biodiversity framework, recognizes the whole of government approach, leverages initiatives like cities with nature and regions with nature, and covers both technical and scientific issues in capacity building international cooperation. So that very summit is not going to be an event, rather a process, taking to the CBD COP coming 15 soon to happen. The date is not specified yet. So that process supports the implementation of the global biodiversity framework and the implementation of the action of the plan of action. So this is the last updates from my side. Unfortunately, because of no news from the Chinese side, we can't give additional updates. That's it from my side. Hope it suffices. I mean, it just gives a little bit of hope on the, a beacon of light for the next the sun, which is hopefully coming soon. Thanks.
Thank you, Stefania, for the updates and all your work as well. Of course, I think they are considering this year still the COP to be held this year, correct?
Yes, in principle.
In principle. I think it's very interesting because, of course, those who are familiar, the Chinese politics, it's one of the very few countries in the world who is applying a very hard, let's say, zero COVID strategy. There are a lot of discussions. Of course, any COP, any UN event being hosted in a country has to respect the domestic procedures. But at the end of the day, this is a UN process. And I don't know what will be the consequences if the other Rio conventions, all the others are advancing with their meetings that we have seen. Abidjan, yes, not perfect, but it's still moving forward. UNFCCC is taking second COP in Africa, but biodiversity, just because of the host country, I'm sure there are huge pressures on China, even including calls for changing the venue in order to secure the meeting. And I'm assuming Chinese officials are not very happy to hear this, but probably these are behind the doors, the discussions that we could
Yes,
expect.
there are pressures for changing the venue because very many people are not that happy to be traveling to China. Therefore, it will be mostly hybrid. And if it's mostly hybrid, a lot of decisions couldn't be taken. That will be it's set up and planned to be in a kind of a bubble, like having charters flying there. So it's a little bit complicated. And that's why it's taking so much, so long time to be coming up to a final solution. So that's, yes.
Good. Feel free to stay with us. We could come back. I mean, those who remember, we have kept these sessions, especially starting from the beginning of this year, our webinars are extended to 90 minutes. But as you have seen from the biodiversity side, we don't have too many agendas. And now we're about to conclude the first hour. I would suggest if there, first of all, any contributions, I see one chat box is response, I will respond to that. But we would like to give the floor for participants. And if not, we don't have to stay until the next 30 minutes, and we can save our very precious time from all of our agendas. I see there was a message that came from Lucy Latham. Lucy, apologies. I know Eva because of our discussions from CMR. And Teresa also mentioned. Lucy, can you also introduce yourself? So your question is, it will be great to connect with ICLEI colleagues working on the global stocktake paper. Definitely. As I said, the global stocktake is now going to the, let's say, in-person discussions. Let's make use of the existing documents in that sense, but also start to prepare for the next as well. And for the submissions, once again, there was some sort of a misunderstanding that those submissions do not necessarily have to relate to the stocktake. They have their own agendas, both adaptation goal, the ACE agenda, research and systematic observation. They all have their own agendas. We have to relate our submissions into that perspective. So I would come back to all of you, and I must confess there was, over the past few weeks and months, certain delay in responding from my side. I know many of our partners were expecting some guidance, which didn't come in time to you, and that was very likely the reason why things have not advanced. I would like to apologize on that front because of some of the disturbance I had faced, but we hope we will catch up soon and then get back to the pace that is needed. So I would appreciate your patience along these lines as well. Any additional point? Just again, for those who are following the negotiations in Bonn, it is 10 days. It is including a number of dialogues. We have a global stocktake as well as other workshops. So it will be good to ensure our participation. I would kindly request all the focal points of the networks who are working on the LGMA process to inform me about your delegation, whether you're attending even in person or in virtual context, because there are some sessions that could be attended virtually. We have nominated for the moment ICLEI, Committee of the Regions, and FMDV for the global stocktake. We will see whether there may be complementarity or substitutes if needed. We will have a City Hall event by City of Bonn on the 10th of June, Friday evening, and there will be ICLEI event on the 13th of Monday, but this time may change in the next couple of hours so that we can announce a new date. With this, I would suggest that we could come to the end of our session if there's no more updates. I see from Teresa, she has shared the delegation of the Committee of the Regions that is now assigned for COP27, which is great. And we would also continue, because I will, as Teresa mentioned, I will join next week's session in the plenary. But I also would like to, through this opportunity, once again, remind all our colleagues the preparations for COP27, including a pavilion that we would like to convene. We remember Committee of the Regions had a very nice session on the last day in connection to their virtual setting. We would look forward to collaborating with all of you for the pavilion. We all know it is resource intense process, but we really believe with the wave coming from Climate and Urbanization Ministerial, with all the discussions, there's a need for a very, very prominent pavilion, bigger in size, bigger in capacity, but also probably also equally demanding in terms of financing. So let's once again crowdsource our resources and proceed for a very, very prominent agenda in Sharm el-Sheikh. With this, I'd like to thank you all for your interest and attention. If there's no more other inputs, I'm declaring that we're closing this session. Those who would wish can join us at the 4 p.m. European time today. Other than that, we wish you the best of a nice day and evening there. Thank you.